let me just kickstart the today's session. Okay, so today we are going to discuss like how we can handle the dynamic dropdown, followed by like we are going to handle the table, and then like we are going to handle the mouse over action. So like we are going to do some different actions, like let's say we are going to handle the dynamic dropdown. So I already told in the last class, so how you can identify whether it is a static or dynamic, in the sense if it start with the select tag, we call it as a static dropdown. So other than select are called as dynamic dropdown. Okay, or in case like whenever the dropdown values changes based upon the user input, like we call it as an dynamic dropdown. So let me pick any one of the web page which contain dynamic dropdown. So like as of now for practice, like let me pick this spicejet.com. So book.spicejet.com, because in this web page like we are having the dynamic dropdown. So as I told, here we are having multiple dropdowns like from, to, and then currency, and even inside the passenger we are having a number of dropdown like adult, child, and infant. Now let's see whether this from and to dropdown are static or dynamic. I'm just right click on it and I'm just inspecting on it, and I'm just looking on the tag name. So if you look on the tag name, it will be starting with a tag called as an input. So which is nothing but it's other than select. So other than select, we call it as a dynamic dropdown. So similarly, if I right click and inspect this to dropdown, even the tag name differs. So even this is a dynamic dropdown. Or else like you can verify like physically, like let me select any value from the from dropdown, and if you just look on the to dropdown, so it is having very minimal values. If I change the from value from Agra to Chennai or Coimbatore, so I can able to see the multiple result. So which is nothing but based upon the user input, like the values in the two dropdowns are getting changed. But whereas the currency dropdown values won't change irrespective of action, whatever the action we are doing over this web page, even like whatever the from or whatever the to or whatever the date I'm selecting, so the currency value remains constants. So that is why like we call this as a static dropdown, and this from and to as a dynamic dropdown. And how we are going to handle the dynamic dropdown? To handle the dynamic dropdown, we don't have any special class in the Selenium, so we are going to use the traditional syntax. So traditional syntax in the sense like we may use any of the locators. So like you can use the ID name, class name, or we can use the Xpath. So before automating the dynamic dropdown, so like you should observe the behavior of an application. So behavior in the sense, so like initially, what is the action we are doing? So we are clicking on the from dropdown. So after clicking on the from dropdown, so the dropdown values are loaded up, and here we need to select the required city, and post that what happened, it will automatically open the to dropdown. So which means like we are clicking the from dropdown and we are selecting the value, and post selecting the value in the from dropdown, automatically to dropdown will populate, and inside the to dropdown like we are going to select the required city. So which is nothing but we are going to do some traditional click operation. So let me just reload this web page. Okay, so initially like we are going to click the from drop down, right? So what we need to do, so we need to right click and we need to inspect, and we need to choose any of the attribute from this particular node. So let's say it's having different attributes like ID, name, etc. So in this I already know like the name is a unique, or if you need a validation, like either you can convert it as an Xpath sentence, or you can just copy paste and check the string value. So if I see, if I hover the mouse over the result, so the from drop down is highlighting. But even though like we are having a multiple result, the find element will always pick the first matching element. So we can tell it is a unique, okay? Or else like if you need the better picture, as I already told in a beginner stage, it is always good to convert it as an Xpath sentence. Now let me just convert it as an Xpath sentence. I can say, so like double slash of the tag name is input and the locator is ID. I can say at ID is equal to in a single slash we can paste the locator value. So now you could see it's showing the one of one result. So which means the ID is unique. So we are going to do the click operation over here. So I'm just clicking this ID attribute. As we are selecting the ID attribute, so we should use the locator called as an ID locator. So let me just create one more scenario, okay, and one more different feature file. So let it be of an SpiceJet. So SpiceJet dot feature. So the extension of the feature file should be always ends with the feature file. Whenever you are adding the new feature file, so we should use the keyword called as an feature, where we need to specify the purpose of the feature file. So here we can say like I'm just highlighting, so SpiceJet automation, and under which I'm going to add a multiple scenario. The first scenario which we are going to automate now is like we are going to handle the dynamic dropdown. So like let the scenario name be the dynamic dropdown. So I'm just making the given statement stating that like user handles the dynamic dropdown. Okay. So whenever we are adding any of the new statement, so like we need to map the respective statement to the step definition file. So I'm just hover over the mouse over the given statement. I'm just clicking on create step definition. So you can either add in the existing steps or you can create the new step. So let me just add it in the existing steps. Okay. So now here we are going to do the automation coding. So like we are going to do the automation with the help of the driver. So like we have already inherited the knowledge of the driver to this particular class. So we can use the web driver, and then like we are going to use the method called as an find element, and we are going to use the locator called as an ID, and in which like we are going to pass the ID attribute. So what is the ID attribute which we have? So let me just copy paste this ID attribute and let me paste it up, and post that I'm going to do the operation called as an click operation. Okay, so now this is done. The first step is done. So next step is like we need to select any values from this drop down. So let's say I'm going to select the Bangalore. So I'm right clicking and inspecting over the Bangalore. So now we could see, so it is highlighting specific node. Here it is having the different locators like on click, text, value, etc. So let's say, let me pick this value attribute. So whenever we pick other attributes other than ID, name or class name, so obviously like we need to use the Xpath. So I'm just converting it the Xpath syntax. What is the tag name? So the tag name here is like a tag. So I'm just providing the tag name. So double slash of a followed by I need to choose the locator. So the locator, sorry, we need to provide the attribute. The attribute is called as a value attribute, and post that like we need to provide the value. So what is the value they have provided? Let's say like I think it's BLR. So let me just type BLR. Okay. So you could see. Okay. So after converting it as an Xpath sentence, it shares one of one result. If I hover over it, so it is highlighting the Bangalore, which means I can use this Xpath and I can click on the Bangalore. So now let me just do the operation like driver dot find element, okay, by dot Xpath. So now I'm just providing the Xpath sentence and I'm just providing the click operation. So currently I'm selecting the Bangalore, but we may in a real time, so we may test the application with a different combination. So like I may use Bangalore and I may use the Madurai for the combination, and I can try to do the search operation. So you may use different cities, like either it can be a Fen Jamun or whatever it is, like you may do the click operation, which means the input is going to be different. So when the input is going to be differ, like obviously the locator is going to be differ. So which is nothing but where we need to change the Xpath syntax. So if we have 100 drop down values, are we going to write 100 Xpath syntax? That's not make sense, right? So like these kind of things will be handled as a reusable file. So that is what like we are going to discuss in the next week, which we call it as an page objects. So whenever we create it as a page object, we can do the reusability of the locators. So like we can customize the locator accordingly. So rather than having 100 locators, with the help of the single locator, so we can convert as a generic statement, and we can convert as a page objects, and we moving forward like with the help of the page objects, so we will be doing the automation. So as of now, let me just stick with this. So now good, like we have clicked the from drop down and we have selected some values, and I'm just selecting the Bangalore. So as per behavior, so post selecting the Bangalore, it is automatically opening the two drop down, which means like we don't need to click on the two drop down. So we can directly select the value from the two drop down. So let's say I'm planning to select the Chennai. So what I will use to do, I will be right clicking and I will be inspecting the Chennai. As usual, I'm going to pick any of the locator property. Let's say let me just pick this value attribute, and I'm converting it as an Xpath syntax, as it is starting with the tag called as an A. I can say so double slash of A, and then like I'm providing the attribute, so value is equal to an attribute value as MAA. Okay, so now we could see it is showing two result. So if I hover over the first result, the Chennai is not highlighting, but if I hover over the second result, so the Chennai is highlighting. So the reason is like the from drop down also contains the value as Chennai. So that is the reason it is showing the two result, which is nothing but the first result is present inside the from drop down. The second result is present inside the two drop down. So in our case, so we need to select the Chennai which is present in the two drop down, which is nothing but we need to select this second result. But if I use the syntax, obviously what happened? The find element will always find the first matching element, and it will try to select the like value inside the from drop down. So as the from drop down is not opened, it may end up in the exception. So it will create some issues. So how we are going to handle it? So which is nothing but we need to make it as one of one result. So how we are going to make it as one of one result in the sense, so we can either traverse from the above node to the below node, or else like we can that is nothing but we can use the concept of an XPath access, or you can create a web element, and with the help of the web element you can handle it up. So let me just show you the two example. So let us create a web element, and let us try to handle the situation, and let us try with the different syntax. So like let us try to use the Xpath access concept. So like let us traverse from the parent child the following sibling concept, and let us try to handle the same. So let's say let us create the web element. So web element is nothing but I told like instead of rather than finding the element in the entire DOM structure, we are going to find the element inside the specific node, which we call it as a specific field, which means like we are going to find this Coimbatore or Chennai inside this two drop down, which is nothing but we need to identify the web element of the two drop down. So what I can do, I can right click and inspect in the top corner of the two drop down. Okay, so I'm just right clicking and inspecting the top drop down. So now, so once the DOM structure is open, so click on the selector. Okay, so and place your mouse over the corner of the two drop down. So once you place in the corner of the two drop down, so the entire two drop down will be highlighted. So just do the click operation over here and you will get some node. Okay, so this is the node. If I hover the mouse over this particular node, the entire two drop down is highlighting, which is nothing but it is going to be act as a parent, and the parent contains multiple child, or in other case we can say we are going to create as a web element and we are going to find the new element only inside this node, which is nothing but, so here the starting the open tag, we have the open div tag and we are having the close div tag somewhere below, and inside which like all the respective values will be present. Okay, so if we keep on expanding the node, we can able to find the corresponding values over there. So now this is going to be act as a like web element. So we are going to create a web element. So let's say how we can create the web element. So with the help of the keyword called as a web element, actually the web element is an interface. So let me explain what is interface in the further class. And we are creating the web element for this two, right? So I can give the variable name as two element. Okay, and then I'm just finding with the help of the web driver by dot id. So I'm just specifying the id and post that like inside this web element, we are going to find the Xpath syntax. So if I type driver.find element, it will find the value in the entire DOM structure. Now we are restricting the usage of the web driver and we are going to find the element inside the web element. What is the variable name of the web element? Which we call it as a two element. So I can say two element dot find element by dot. Now I can write the Xpath syntax of the respective Chennai. Okay, or Chennai. Okay, let me right click and inspect, because this Chennai is specifically present inside this drop down. Okay, which is present inside this web element. So because the div you could see, so we have open div in this line which is terminating below. If you scroll to the down, so it will be terminating somewhere below. So which is nothing but like here it is terminating. So all the corresponding values are present inside this parent node. So now I'm restricting the usage of the web driver rather than finding this Chennai inside the entire DOM structure. I'm going to find the Chennai only inside this two dropdown. So now obviously as we are finding the element inside, specifically inside the specific node, now the result will be 1 of 1. So now let me just write the Xpath syntax. We call it as a double slash of a, and we are using the attribute called as an value is equal to single quotes of MAA. So now let me just try to provide this syntax in my coding, and we are going to do the click operation. Okay, so now this is done. Now let us run the scenario. Like let me just add some tag. So let it be SpiceJet01. I'm providing the tag in the runner file, and as we are using the different URL, which is nothing but different test environment, so we should update the test environment in the config.properties file. So in the config.property file, I am just updating the URL. So now let me just run this runner file. So right click and just run this runner file. So it will build the project and it will execute the particular text. So it has picked the respective test and the browser is invoked. It is selecting the from, but it is not selecting the to. Did I write the wrong coding? Gee, what happened? Let me check. Some wrong action is performed. So user handle the dynamic drop down, and under which like I have provided this ID, whether this ID is correct or not. So let me just right click and inspect this once again. Okay, so this is the ID present. So did I provide the same over here? Okay, fine. And we are having the two element dot by dot click. Yes, everything is correct, but some other new thing is open. So let me just rerun this test, or if there is a further failure, let's analyze what is the mistake we have done. Okay, so it is performing the wrong action. So now let us analyze like what is the thing which we have done, or else let me create this web element. It is present inside this particular div. Yes, correct. Let's see, do we have any other parent above which? Okay, so we are having another parent, so called as an div id is equal to class. Okay, this particular class contains this particular thing. Okay, I think let me just check it up whether it is unique or not. Yes, it is giving the unique result, and the second matching result. Let me change this Xpath syntax and let me just try it up. We are using the by.id, right? And let me try rerunning the script. Okay, so now you could see it has selected the from drop down as well as the to drop down. So which is nothing but like initially like we have created the wrong web element. So like whenever we are choosing the web element, so we should be cautious, like we need to identify the parent element of the particular field. So how you can identify the parent element in the sense, so in other way, like you can just for example, if you need to find the parent element of this to drop down, so just right click at the top and do the inspect. You will be navigating to certain node. So from this node, so just use your like arrow key, so arrow up key, and traverse till the top at particular one point. So the entire table will be highlighted. So let's just keep moving like and check, like at particular one point the entire table will be highlighting. So you could see here now the entire table is highlighting, and even if I move above, the entire table is highlighting. If I move above, so now the table won't highlight, it is highlighting the two drop down. So which is nothing but we can say, okay, so this is going to be act as the parent. Okay, so now we should create the web element for the parent node, and with the help of the web element, like we are trying to find the element inside the child node. So this is how like we need to identify the parent, and we should create the web element for the parent node. So as we are having two things, one is called as a class and id. So as id is unique, I have used the id locator and I have handled the same. And now the same thing can be handled using the different sentence. So in an automation, like we don't have any restriction like stating that you should use only this locators. So the Selenium is offering n number of locators. So whichever you feel comfortable, so you can pick any of the locators. Okay, so we don't have any restrictions. So now let me try to handle the same thing with the Xpath access. So like like we are having Xpath access. So Xpath access in the sense like we are going to seek help from the surrounding node. So which is nothing but we can traverse from fixed node to the required node. So the fixed node in the sense you can say this parent node as a fixed node. So like you can this is the parent node, right? So now we are having this parent node. Let me just right click and inspect and find this. Okay, this is the parent node. So we can fix this parent node. So how we are going to fix the parent node? With the help of the Xpath syntax, I can say / of div at id is equal to in a single quotes, like we can provide the syntax. Sorry. So like we have fixed the syntax. Now this is going to be act as a fixed node. Now from this fixed node, like we need to traverse to the required node. So required node in the sense like somewhere like the syntax for this. Let me just reload this web page. It has it it's got timed out. Okay, so now it's reloaded. Let me just select the two. Okay, now we are having the two drop down. I'm right clicking and inspecting. So already the DOM structure is open. So like we need to like find the element of this Chennai, right? If I right click and inspect, so we will get to know this is the syntax of the Chennai. So this is the fits node. Okay, so we need to see. So the fits node is present here. From this node, we need to traverse to the Chennai. So Chennai is present here. So how you can traverse? So you can use the keywords like the child or the descendant or the following sibling. So you can traverse from this fixed node to the required node. Okay, so this is one way. So you guys can try it out. There is an another alternative approach like in the experts access. So we are having few other syntax where we can mix relative plus relative XPath, and we can mix the relative plus absolute XPath. So which means what is meant by relative plus relative? So we can fit some node. So let's say I'm fixing this particular node, and when I use one more relative absolute XPath along with it, so what it does is like initially it will find the first relative XPath. So which is nothing but like obviously our search result will be like navigating to this particular node. And when we amend any of the new syntax, it always check the XPath below it. So it won't check above it. So obviously the code for from dropdown will be present above this particular node. So now when I mix this relative XPath, so it will search the second relative XPath below this node. So let's say, so what is the second XPath? So this is the second XPath we have written. So let me just copy paste the XPath which we have written. So when I mix this relative plus relative XPath, so now let me try to copy paste the same and let me paste it in the DOM structure. So it will show one of one result. So the reason is like here we have mixed the relative plus relative XPath. So initially it will find the first relative XPath, and post that it will find the second relative edge path below the first relative edge path. So it won't check above the relative edge path, it will check the below the first relative edge path. So that is the reason like we are getting the one of one result, which is nothing but like whatever we have seen here. So like we have created the web element and we are specifically find the element inside the web element. We have converted this two line into a single line. So even this we call it as a regular expression of the X path. So rather than creating the web element, so even you can handle in a single line. So let's say I can say driver dot find element by dot X path. I can use the X path regular expression and I can do the click operation. So if I do in this way, so even it will work. So either you can create a web element and you can traverse, or you can traverse with the help of the parent child or ancestor descendant keywords, or you can mix the relative plus relative edge path. In other case, we can mix the relative plus absolute edge path. So let me just show you one more example. So like let me, for easy understanding, let me just pick this Salesforce application. So in the Salesforce application, like we have already traversed from parent to child. So let's say, so this is the parent. So if I need to traverse from parent to child, so what is the keyword I will be using? So like I will be using the child keyword. So initially I'm just fixing the parent node, and from the parent node I will be traversing to the child node. So if I need to traverse to the child node called as a div id is equal to id car container, I will be using the single slash of I followed by the child keyword, then colon colon, I will be providing the tag name called as a div. So technically what we have done in the sense, so the double slash indicates the relative edge path, so single slash indicates the absolute edge path. So even like we have clubbed the relative plus absolute edge path over here. Or in other case, so even instead of using the keywords, like we can traverse to the child node. So you know what is meant by absolute edge path. So absolute edge path is nothing but we are going to traverse from the head to tail. So here this particular node is acting as a head. So if I need to traverse to the tail element, so whatever which is present below, we call it as a tail element. So rather than using the keywords, I can say single slash of div. So even it indicates, so it will traverse to this parent to the tail, because as it is present immediately below, so we are traversing to the tail node. So even inside the div, if I need to traverse to the other div, I can say single slash of div. And if I need to traverse to this a tag, I can say single slash of a. So which is nothing but like as what is meant by absolute edge path. Absolute edge path is nothing but we always traverse from like head to tail tag, which is nothing but we are traversing node by node. So here we are creating the fits node and then we are traversing node by node. So even you can use the relative plus absolute edge path and you can handle the situation. So in order to handle a single field, like we are having various way, like you can use the XPath syntax or any other locators, or relative plus relative XPath or relative plus absolute XPath, or you can use the XPath access keywords like the parent, child, ancestor, descendant, etc. So even this thing, right? So obviously if this is acting as a parent, so whatever which is present below, so we call it as a next generation. So I can use the descendant keyword, and with the help of the descendant keyword, I can traverse to this particular thing. So there are various way. So you can use whatever the combination which is familiar for you. So use that combination and try to handle it up. At end of the automation, so whatever the syntax you are going to use, it should be like kind of an one of one result. So now if I run the same code, even it is going to perform the same operation, like it will be clicking on the Chennai. So there are various way. So it is up to like you to use any of the way which is more familiar to you. Okay, so even if you are not familiar with the XPath access, okay, use the traditional syntax, make a fits node and traverse node by node. So mix the relative plus the absolute expert syntax, or you can mix the relative plus relative syntax, etc., and you can handle the situation very easily. Okay, so you could see, so it has click on the Bangalore as well as Chennai. So now how we have executed in the sense, rather than creating the web element, so we have created the generic Xpath, and with the help of the single line, like we are able to perform the click operation. So there are various way to handle the certain field. So in further classes, we are going to achieve the reusability. As I told, we are going to create the page objects, and with the help of the page object, we will make the coding much easier, and we will be making, we will be achieving the concept of reusability. That is the main thing. So like rather than duplicating the code. So for example, in my scenario, I'm clicking on the Bangalore. In your scenario, if you are planning to click on the Bangalore, so there will be duplication of code. So in my step definition also, I will be having the XPath for this Bangalore, and in your step definition also, there will be a duplicate line. So how we are going to avoid this duplicate line of coding in the sense? So with the help of the page objects. So those things I will be explaining in the next week. Okay. So till this point, does anyone have any doubt?